Gwinkler either. So we've got Bob Pfeiffer, Jordan Beasley.
And Greg did join. I see him on.
Oh, and I see Jeff too.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Delilah Collins.
Yeah, the Colin is Jerry Enright from the Dora.
Hi, Jerry. Thanks for joining.
Sure, thank you.
So Stephanie Bennett, who's with OE has requested that Ashley Heathfield join us. So Ashley, are you here? Okay. Jennifer Lewis.
Yeah, this is Jennifer Lewis.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for joining. Andy Frohard.
Yes, hi.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for joining. I think we're ready to go, Bob.
All right, awesome. So again, welcome everybody for this month's Broadband Advisory Board. We have excitement around our newest member and guest. Well, it's not even guest, you're here now because you are now the Executive Director of the Colorado Broadband Office. So why don't I go ahead and hand it over to Brandy Ryder for her introduction and who she is and share with the board all about Brandy today.
Thank you, Bob, for that intro. So yes, I'm Brandy Ryder. I am the new Executive Director for the Colorado Broadband Office, and I'm very excited to be in this role and join the state of Colorado through this historic time of funding for broadband. And just a little overview of myself. I come from the city management realm. I was the former town manager for the town of Eagle, and I've been in that industry for 10 years, and I've spent about 15 years in local government as a whole. And so I most of my work, if not all of my local government experience, is in rural Colorado, and broadband is a pain point that all the munis and counties share across the state, especially in rural Colorado. And it's been something that I've dealt with quite often in all my communities. And I've been in several communities so far. So Eagle, Buena Vista, Saguache, Gilchrist. I did some time in Longmont, in the city and county of Denver. And so I've seen a few things over the course of spending time in these communities, and definitely the digital landscape is always something that's evolving and changing, but it seems to it hasn't evolved as quickly as it has on in higher density areas like on the Front Range. And so I'm happy to take my knowledge in the field and apply it to some of these state programs that we have. I think sometimes the intersection of policy and application can get a little tricky. And so hopefully I can bring that perspective to the grant making that we do and policy development as we spend these federal dollars to implement and deploy broadband. I'm originally from Colorado, so I was born and raised on the Front Range. Love Colorado. I've moved away a couple of times and come back. So I spent some time in Arizona and Washington, D.C. But Colorado is my home, and I love it here. And so, and yeah, again, I'm excited to work with my staff and everybody who's putting in so much time on this effort. I think it's very important. And I always said if I was going to leave city management, it'd have to be special. And this is one of those occasions where it is special. So I'm happy to be the leader in this space. So that's a little bit about me. Just personally, I'm like a lot of folks that live in Colorado, I like the outdoors. So skiing, biking, all that good stuff, or just even walking your dog around the park if you're not into skiing and everything. So it's great to be here, and it took me a while to get here, but I'm happy to help out and do good work for the state of Colorado. So that's a little bit about me. I guess I'll hand it back over to Bob. If there's any questions about my background or anything, I can take them.
Maybe I should unmute. Before I ask any questions of our board members, I just want to say what little time I've known Brandy, I will say I'm extremely impressed, and we're excited as state agencies to have someone like Brandy on our team to help push this boulder uphill for us around broadband. And I know a lot of folks on this call are going to be extremely interested in what progress we can do as a team. And it is a team effort. As Brandy and I talked last week about it, it takes several agencies as well as private sector, public relationships, with public sector as well, to ensure that we can get broadband to achieve the executive order, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. Even before the executive order, I can confidently say it's always been our driver as a state to try to resolve broadband and push forward as long as before I even became a state employee. So this is a group that I'm passionate about, and I'm glad to have you on board with us, Brandy. So welcome. Before any questions from board members for Brandy? Anything you want to know about, like what she likes to eat, how far is her commute? When is broadband coming to my town?
Well, I don't have a commute because I'm an Eagle. So, but yeah, and we're going to try to get broadband to everybody. So and that's what the executive order spells out. And I like chocolate and coffee. So.
And we're going to get along just fine. So, any questions from the board? Sarah, I'm okay with maybe 5-10 minutes opening it up for the public to ask Brandy any questions before we get in, if you're okay with it. I feel it's a good opportunity for Brandy to reach our constituents here on this call. Anyone from the general public or audience that's not a board member that's interested in asking Brandy any questions in her new position with the state? Or you can put it in the chat if you'd like to do that as well. Can I pick on people? Because I know some people in this list. I should pick on some to ask some questions. I see.
Can't pick on people, Bob.
Well, I'm going to pick on them to ask questions. I see Diane Cruz. I see Jennifer Price. I can name a few people. See, they
yes, I'm a Denver Nuggets fan for sure. Thank you, Patrick, and Broncos and all the Colorado teams.
I see Scott Harry. Okay, Brian Wagner. Okay, see, I tried.
One thing that I'd like to mention, and I kind of glossed over this, but in terms of my experience with broadband, and I just want to be a little bit more specific so people understand kind of where I've seen it, where I've seen good partnerships work, and just some of the projects that I've been able to be a part of. I've participated in a couple of regional broadband strategy develop plans. So for example, in Chaffee County, I did my own strategy in Buena Vista, and then I also did a feasibility and strategy in Eagle, which ended up turning into a muni broadband program. So I've set some of these programs up from scratch, from plan to implementation. And so in my work, I'm most proud of my most recent work with the partnership with the Northwest COG, Thor, which I'm sure a lot of you on the call have heard about. And I think that, that's a model that is successful and working very well. Eagle was one of the early adopters of Thor and initial investors, and we call it we're the original investors, a handful of communities that made that middle mile project successful, that is now reaching several communities on the western slope. And the projects are different, and I know it's cliche, but it's not a one size fits all. It just really depends on the existing infrastructure that you have in your communities, as well as the partners that are in your area. But to me, it's been a very successful collaboration, and I just want to thank DOLA and CDOT for making that happen, because that was a big undertaking, and it was a proof of concept. And with broadband, that's what it is. I mean, a lot of people want answers to certain specific questions, but this is a new landscape, and I feel like a pioneer, working on broadband at this level. And so I did that for the town of Eagle, and we were able to really see open access middle mile work really well. And it ended up resulting in the town having municipal broadband, but also we were able to help CDOT with some emergency response issues in the Glenwood Canyon for the big rock slide, as well as we were able to open up access for a lot of smaller providers like Visionary, Mammoth, Pathfinder. So it's not just the big, conglomerates like Comcast or CenturyLink, but it's also our small local business telecoms. So they're very important to the putting the piece together for broadband. And then the other thing that I was able to do was, I set up a brand new cable franchise with Comcast. It's very rare you get to do those because usually all these franchises started back in the 70s and 80s during some of the telecom boom, cable boom. And so, I was able to negotiate on behalf of the town of Eagle, and now Comcast is a huge player in our region when before they weren't. And I think the CDOT middle mile had a lot to do with that, and just open access. And for me, I don't think, like I said, it's not a one size fits all. I think the best results are when there's a collaboration, because a lot of governments don't want to be an ISP, but they're happy to provide the information highway to connect to. So that's a little bit of my background in broadband specifically. I'm not an industry person, but I've met a lot of industry people, and they've educated me throughout my career. And so I've collaborated and worked with several ISPs over the years, and it's really cool when you can get projects done that were in your communities before. And so happy to bring that experience, but I do see some questions, so I'll take a pause there.
Yeah, we have Scott Harry. Who's up? Scott?
Yeah. Hey, Brandy, welcome aboard. This is it's a great role you're jumping into, and yeah, just excited to see where the broadband office goes from here, or the broadband board goes from here. So I just wanted to know your thoughts about wireless as broadband and how you're taking into account wireless services in sort of the big picture of broadband.
Thank you, Scott, for that question. So wireless for me falls underneath the umbrella of broadband. And so it's definitely part of the picture. And it's something that especially in my community, when you can't reach, especially when it's cost prohibitive to do fiber to the home, you can really take advantage of just the line of sight wireless equipment to get people access. And sometimes, so for my own experience, because I'm in rural Colorado, is I subscribe to a wireless provider right now, and I have better internet than DSL that CenturyLink provides. So it's absolutely something that we are interested in supporting. And so that's, and I know for myself, mainly in Chaffee County, we went out for some DOLA grants regionally to build towers to support wireless technology. And that's how we were able to reach a lot of homes in those, nooks and crannies of the valleys of Chaffee County. So it's definitely it's definitely an approach that falls under the veil of broadband.
Great. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. With our terrain, it has to be considered. And Crown Castle, the company I work for, is one of the infrastructure providers to the wireless industry. And we're also a fiber owner, and we build fiber as well. So we want to make sure that Colorado is well represented. And those rural areas really need help. One of our board members lives in Eagle. And so we're aware of the issues, just particularly in Eagle. So.
Right. Exactly.
All right, I know there's a few questions. I think Sarah will answer those if we can. Make sure Sarah Amy's gets answered as well. I don't know, maybe we do it at the end. But let's go ahead and get into the executive order. There's been a lot of questions around the recent executive order.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but before we move on to the executive order, can I just talk about outreach really quickly and some updates around the funding?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't see that on there.
No problem. So just to answer Will's question, so there's been a lot of questions around how the Colorado Broadband Office is handling the funding, both the capital projects funds and the broadband specific funding in the IJA bill, which is the Digital Equity Act. There's some bonds in there that aren't going to be related to what the Colorado Broadband Office does. There's the BEAD program, and there's a middle mile program. So the biggest update for everyone to know is that for the capital projects funds, we have had our administrative plan approved within the Colorado Broadband Office. So there will be an RFP that will be coming out in the next couple of weeks associated around consulting services for a grant program that we're looking to work with a company to help us build a grant program and do some of the feasibility, take rate, pre-planning studies that are required to be able to deploy the funding correctly. And the state's grant program and plan is due to the Treasury in September. So likely there will be updates throughout the summer of what that grant plan is starting to look like. And I'll talk a little bit about the outreach about that in a second. In terms of the IJA programs, the Digital Equity Act, the BEAD program, and the Middle Mile program, BEAD program is open only to the state. The Digital Equity program, there's 3 programs, 2 of which are open only to the state, 1 of which is open competitively. And then the Middle Mile program, which is open to the state and competitively outside of the state organizations. At some point, Kate Sneed is the person to get in contact with for an in-depth view of these programs. But for right now, it's important to know that the notice of funding opportunity for all 3 of those programs will be released from the NTIA in May. So we'll know more about what those programs look like and what the state will be doing to apply for the BEAD program, the Digital Equity program, and the Middle Mile program. So please stay tuned for that. And again, Kate Sneed, and I'll put her email address in the chat over here, will be the contact. So for outreach, we are kicking off our regional working group sessions. And I am putting out a call for support from regions. And I'm just going to show this document really quickly. This is the regional document that we're using. So we are reaching out to counties to work together as a region to help us identify critical need, which is a requirement in the capital projects funds. And thanks, Kate. Yes, Kate clarified that the NOFO is for the state of Colorado to apply for funds, not for state level funding. Apologies if that was confusing. So I will be reaching out to these regions to set up working group sessions. These will not be recorded. These will be invite only. If you'd like to participate in the working group session or you'd like to host a working group session, please contact me. And we will be putting together a map of the area with the coverage that we know now, future and current investment, and critical needs and future and current broadband needs. So this is really kind of a heads down working group session. We can do them in person, we can do them virtually, we can do a hybrid. Let us know, but we're really trying to work with the local champions. And sometimes those local champions are a library, sometimes they're an internet service provider. And we want to invite everyone to the table to have a conversation about what is needed. Just for clarification, this is not a meeting to complain about not having broadband. It's a meeting to bring everyone together to find solutions. So please contact me. There'll be an email out later this week to all of these regional offices. And would love any help, contact, or feedback you have around this. Okay, that's it for me, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Good information. It's going to be a lot of activity over the next few months. It's not the rest of the year. You'll hopefully see us all out in your area, neck of the woods, to discuss broadband, and it's always a hot topic and how funding dovetails into it. So Sarah and Brandy, you have a lot on the Colorado Broadband Office side. So we'll move right on into the executive order. We're referring to Executive Order 2022-009 that was released. When was it released? I think it was about 6 weeks ago, if I remember right.
February 17th.
February 17th, so not quite a month ago. You know, oh good, I was gonna say, could you put it up there for us? Can we get a little bit bigger so that folks can see? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'll let Brandy, since majority of it is her, and I'm gonna chime in as well, specifically around what CDOT's role is in this and how the agencies work together to achieve the outcomes. So Brandy, I'll kick it off to you and we'll just go through it where needed.
Thanks, Bob. As Bob mentioned, you know, the governor signed an executive order kind of giving the Colorado Broadband Office some directives and structure around what the expectations are for broadband statewide. And so the name of the executive order is Accelerating Broadband Deployment in Colorado, and that's very fitting because that's our goal. So we did this a couple weeks ago, last month, and the governor's goal, he wants to connect 99, he wants the Colorado Broadband Office and partners to connect 99% of in-state households to high-speed internet broadband by 2027. And when I say broadband, there are some speeds that he's expecting, and that's 100 down and 20 up. We feel that's sufficient for broadband and connectivity to basically, do business, run a hospital, run schools, run libraries, and run your households. And so that's the goal. We're supposed to deliver on that by 2027. So we're excited that we do have a goal, because obviously when you're spending a lot of money, it's good to have a goal and to benchmark against progress for that goal. So we're going to be looking at critically underserved areas in the state of Colorado and forming those partnerships to help deploy broadband. We will leverage federal funds to meet our goal. I don't know much about, I don't know if we're going to leverage any state funds at this point. I know DOLA has a couple of programs, and DOLA has been really great over the years funding broadband programs. And I've taken advantage of a few of those programs. So, but we're going to leverage a lot of our federal resources to get this done. The other piece of this is the Colorado Broadband Office has been tasked with developing a statewide broadband strategic plan. As many of you know on the call, it kind of starts with a strategic plan. At least in my work, it always starts with a strategic plan. So we'll be conducting quite a bit of outreach, asking communities across the state what they need and what their priorities are. And then it'll include not just government entities, but also industry folks, other partners and collaborators, nonprofits, anybody who's interested in broadband and seeing success there. We're supposed to develop this plan by August 31st of this year, which is ambitious, but we will have a plan by August 31st this year. So, or at least a draft plan of it. We've actually finished the process of selecting a vendor. So hopefully we can get that under contract and underway. You might ask, how does this dovetail into the working groups that Sarah just mentioned? Those working groups are really specific to the Capital Projects Fund. We do have a deadline, like she said, at in September that we're trying to meet, that we will meet. So a lot of the work that she's going to be asking about is going to be associated with the Capital Projects Fund. And so, but it'll complement the efforts of the statewide plan that we're going to kick off this year. So that plan will probably take 12 to 18 months, probably 18 months, but we want to make sure it's done right. But all of these efforts will dovetail really nicely together. So you'll see the state of Colorado kind of crawling across all the communities over the next year or so to collect information and projects and to try to make progress towards the 99% goal. Part of if you scroll down, I'll just pop over directives because I think that's where we are. So this requires collaboration. So, the governor really wants us to collaborate with other agencies in the state government, which includes CDOT, which Bob's on the call, of course. It talks about the strategic plan, which I mentioned, and then the industries that we're going to be targeting, and then the listening tour. What we're going to do all of that as part of our strategic plan. I know the governor wants to do a separate listening tour and go to counties to talk about the projects that we have going on, and some of you have asked questions about what kind of projects you have going on so that we can highlight those when he's out and about. But really our federal funds will be focusing on middle mile deployment. I know a lot of communities kind of grapple with, are we going to be the provider? Are we just going to provide middle mile? We're in the business of middle mile, the state of Colorado. So, and most of our grants are target middle mile. And so to support last mile deployment. So let me just go down to, so I want to go down to 6C. So this is important because these are the targeted areas that the state's going to focus on to help deploy broadband as well, on top of obviously households. But we really want to support broadband to K-12 distance learning, libraries, improving Colorado tourism, internet connectivity to state park, telemedicine, state prisons, the tribes, and then obviously rural communities, which specifically focus on households and businesses, so that we can support the work and support broadband deployment in rural Colorado. So another directive that Governor Polis mentioned in his in the EO is just making sure that other agencies, for policy development and legislative development, that we streamline and make our processes more efficient, and hopefully expedite applications, grant applications, the regulatory environment to support broadband. What I know about broadband is it does move quickly, just like a lot of projects in the field. And so anything that we can do to make it easier for industry and communities to access funds is going to be key. So one of those, for example, is Senate Bill 152, which I know a lot of you guys are aware of, which prohibits government entities from engaging in broadband activities beyond the scope of just serving themselves, their facilities. So we're looking at a fix for that. I think it's a win-win for government as well as industry, because the more we can remove roadblocks, the more we can deploy funds and resources to help communities build middle mile and help industry build the last mile to serve communities in our target areas. So we have some transparency measures, performance measures. The big one here is CDOT. So like I said earlier, CDOT has a lot of assets out there. And, in my community, I was able to take advantage of it. And so the EO also directs CDOT to work with the CBO. And we have a great working relationship with CBO to identify ways to leverage state assets in a way that works for CDOT, but also leverage assets that helps deploy broadband. So I won't steal any of Bob's thunder. I'll let you speak to CDOT's section here, because I know CDOT owns a little bit of this, owns part of this EO. So do you want to kind of talk about your directive, Bob, and how that's going to help us achieve the 99%?
Yeah, so thank you, Brandy, and thanks. You really kind of did a good overview of the EO, and now kind of like, well, how do we make the sausage work? And so now what we're doing with CDOT, as some of you may, if you've attended our previous meetings, I mentioned that we're still in the process of hiring we don't want to call it a broadband team because we already have a Colorado broadband office. So we're calling it a fiber development team. Basically, it's a business development team that will be pulled together to support not only this executive order, potentially the Senate Bill 83 as well, but also there's some federal requirements around the Mobile Now Act, and they kind of all converge together. We're putting resources to be the swivel chair between industry and CDOT to be able to champion both industry concerns and issues, address those issues, as well as coordination better with CDOT projects within our right-of-way, build, dig once, move, relocations, those kind of things. So there will be a true advocacy for both CDOT and the industry within this small team of 3 people that we're looking to hire. And so if you want to scroll down just a little bit, some of the key things we're going to be focusing on, and it kind of dovetails in, there's more details in here. Basically, what we're going to be doing is, it's been asked by industry, and I know some of you know this, that we add an option for kind of like a fee structure around not necessarily doing a P3 for access to the right-of-way, to move into kind of like choose what tool in the toolbox best works for the people that need access to the right-of-way. So we're trying to create multiple tools and avenues to access the right-of-way while still being compliant with other state statute and federal requirements. So this team will help pull this together. We kind of already have the P3 down, but what we'll be doing is moving everything electronically, ease of access to submit unsolicited proposal for access. Also, if you don't want to go down that path, you can submit electronically a permit and pay the structure fee for access. We're just trying to do every kind of option for folks to lay fiber in that, like I said, is still compliant with both state and federal rules and state law, and but still try to make it easy to transact. One of my biggest goals of the team is to be more transactional versus getting into these long negotiated discussions, which I know a handful of you are partners of ours and know how painful those can become. But our goal here, and this is when we agreed with the governor when he asked about this, is can we do better? And yes, we can. And that's what we're going to be doing. And so this executive order gives us the oomph to push that envelope and to become more transactional. So some of the key things here, we will get the uniformed electronic application, permitting, contract fee structure, to facilitate by August 30th. Also, that could be for leasing dark fiber as well from us, and it's available. I hope to have that all by then. We'll try to go above and beyond, but we're going to try to get that stood up. The one thing that caught me off guard was get the transparent website up by March 31st, which is in 2 weeks. I asked for 90 days, but apparently I got 35 or 40 days. So we're scrambling to get that up there of how you can access or request state-owned, our dark fiber to lease it. So we'll get that up here hopefully here soon. We're going to try to get an electronic form for the request, which will trigger what I'm pushing for is a shorter version of a contract so that we can get that more transactional. So we're going to get something up there. So if you're one of the first to go through that threshold, bear with us, because that's like giving us 30 days to get a process put up there and try to make it easier to transact, but we will accomplish that. Obviously, we need a consistent approach while adhering to the federal and state statutes. So obviously, these are dealing with our P3 statutes. There's federal rules around safety and access to our right-of-way we have to follow with FHWA and USDOT, and the Federal Transit Authority as well. So since we run bus lines, so that's another thing we've got to think through and make sure that we're in compliance. And then a standard pricing framework expected for timeline. So this is basically, we're going to be documenting. If I was to show you the process now, it would be such an eye chart that I think we would all fail, because the process that we have documented is showing every little detail. And so one of the things we want to do when we get into the standard pricing and cost framework, expected timelines, details about the application review, is streamline that down. So we're working on getting that as well done, and hopefully this year. I am going to be looking at, right now I'm trying to toy with the idea of what kind of work group that could look like, because I'd like to have a cross section of agency as well as industry and public entities to see what would work and not work. And obviously we want to work with people that have been through the process, because then they know what they didn't like and what they liked. And so how do we do better? And then maybe some that have are at the doorstep of the process as well. So stay tuned. If you're interested, I think you can all get my email. I'll put it up there, Sarah, here, and people can email if they're interested in that work group. I hope to have something done or put together by summer for those discussions to get feedback on how we can do better. If we can scroll down to the next page. And then I think that's really it. So we're really trying to address, we did hear some folks wanting this fee structure. The point of this is we're going to address the fee structure. We're going to also embrace P3s and streamline that process, as well as streamline process to dark fiber and how does that work. For some that have worked with us, we actually removed out of our agreements that you couldn't generate revenue off of our fiber. That was a restriction at one point. It was supposed to be for government only. That's old school thinking from 20 plus years ago. And for those that don't know it, but we have removed that because, one, we can't regulate it. We would know it one way or the other, but it also kind of contradicts the CEO and what our whole purpose about rural broadband and pushing it out. So for any of those that have any dark fiber agreements that may be on the call or listening to this recording, we're not enforcing that rule, and we actually will amend the agreement if that's so fitting. But that is so we can just open this dark fiber up to truly be an IRU and do the business you need to do, and not be strictly required to keep a very narrow focus on how you use the fiber. The only thing we ask that you cannot do in our dark fiber, which we'll publish on our website, is you cannot sublease it. So that gets into right-of-way access, and that's one of our biggest reasons. But other than that, we will have this process ironed out, streamlined, and my goal is, man, I'll put it on a recording here. I want to cut our process time by 40-50% if we can. And so we're trying to every which way to work with our state controller's office, which is EO helps me with. We're working with our procurement office to tighten up their end. We're trying to see, is there unnecessary language that's caused heartburn in our negotiation on our master services agreement? We're trying to cut that out. We're putting staff that is dedicated to just this discussion, which we've never done. And just for clarity, some of the fees that are collected off this is to fund those employees. So it's self-funding and does not take money away from precious transportation dollars. So all of these things are coming together and correlating so that we can have a successful program to support the Colorado Broadband offices. We're a partner with Colorado Broadband Office, but ultimately the Broadband Office needs to guide us through strategic planning and collaboration. So we're here to help them be successful as well. So there's my story, and that's how I would translate the CEO. If there's any questions from the board on either Brandy or I, we'll take those now. If there's not, we can open it to the public.
There was one question that Amy, and I'm going to butcher your last name. Amy earlier on the chat said, I don't think I answered it. So I just want to answer that question.
Yep.
She asked, what do you think? What do you think as one of the most important things the state can do and good partners can do, especially in smaller rural areas? And Amy, I guess how I'd answer that question is based on my own experience. I would start at the local level, identify the ISPs in your area, and I would even take it a step further and identify public partners. Like if you have an electrical co-op nearby, or the county's doing something, or another local municipality is doing something, to see where are the broadband assets, who's running them, and ask them if they have an ability to serve your community. I do know that when you start with a strategy, it kind of brings everybody to the table. At least that's what I've done in the past, where I start with, hey, we're going to build a strategy, and we're inviting everybody to the table, industry and public partners, and start there. I mean, I know a lot of communities can't afford, a $50,000 plan or strategy. And that was the going rate a couple years ago, so I'm sure it's probably a little bit more. Dole is a great resource as well for funding, and so for those planning grants. But I would start with identifying who's who in your community and seeing. You might not even need to do a strategy. Sometimes if you just ask ISPs like, "Hey, we're willing to partner. This is what we can bring to the table." I think that's a first start. To me, that's the most important thing, is identifying collaborators first, and then building a strategy. So that's what I would do in rural Colorado. It's really expensive to try to do it on your own. So it requires several partners. So when I did it in Eagle, we actually partnered with Glenwood Springs, which is in the Canyon, to help do like a shared service model for our muni broadband. So it takes a village for sure. So I just wanted to make sure I answered that question in the chat.
Thank you, Brandy. All righty. Any questions on the executive order for Brandy or I? And we'll open that up to the public, or you can put it in chat.
I just want to add, this is a great opportunity if the public has recommendations or suggestions on how this board can help implement the executive order, or desires for collaboration or inclusion in this process, please speak up. This is a great opportunity.
While we're waiting, I guess I can go ahead and kind of give, an example of collaboration discussion will maybe provoke some thinking and comments. Recently I was down into the southwest corner, meeting with some of the county commissioners and brought back, I advocated with Brandy on opportunities on how do we, get there. And I can assure you that the collaboration between the state agencies are growing and improving, and we're trying to make sure that we achieve this outcome in a collaborative way. It's public, it's state agency with state agency, it's public-private, private with state, it's all over the place. But that's a good thing. That's what we need to do, is make sure that there is collaboration with everything from nonprofits, with COGS, with government, state, both city and county, private industry, because together, while we maneuver through some of the state regs and some of the federal regs and the funding requirements, we've got to think innovatively, and we've got to think, how do we get to the, as some of you know, when I work with you on some of these agreements, we want to work for the 3 wins: win for the state or the government agency, a win for private industry, and a win for the constituents who are also the citizens of our state and visitors of our state. Everything we do should look for 3 W's. And so we need to be thinking about how we can get to that situation and promote that. Anyone have any ideas or thoughts or any success stories or examples in your communities that you think that this Broadband Advisory Board would benefit from? You're more than welcome to chat it or talk about it.
Hey, Bob, this is Rob Jenkins with the Colorado Hospital Association Broadband Services. And I just wanted to pop in because I really commend the approach for breaking down the silos and bringing everybody to the table. I think that, just in my little healthcare corner of the world, that's been challenging. So making sure that everybody's at the table is a really strong approach. So I commend you and the folks on the call for setting it up in this way, because I think, just in my experience, it is truly the best way to position this effort for success. So thank you.
Yeah, no, Rob, I appreciate you chiming in, because, let me just tease out the conversation we just had down on 160, Highway 160. We're at CDOT's trying to get down, well, we will be getting down Wolf Creek Pass, and we do have private partners involved. But as soon as we get down to Pagosa, we've got to stop. But we got a hospital on the west side of Pagosa that's very interesting connecting. We got to keep that in mind as we're thinking about, creating this new, lack of a better word, an information highway, right? We're creating a highway, we're connecting communities together through fiber optics. But we also need to think about our, tribal nations that are down there, making sure they're connected. The counties, I saw La Plata on here. I met with some of your commissions. So I see Mark, but I met with Commissioner, is it Salta? I think it's Mark. All the counties are interested in taking their limited resources to try to get this to promote. We've got to improve the transportation system at the same time. By 160 is getting very packed down there, and then we have private partners, quite a few. It's just no one can do it 100% on one's back. It will take all of us working together to be creative and innovative to pull this off. I look at Greg. I know Dola is heavily involved with all the communities down there. I saw Corey in here from Region 10. We've got to put all this together and be successful to achieve the outcome. And no one can work in a silo. So I'm only speaking for me. There's the rest of the board here that can chime in, but we cannot work in a silo. It didn't work for private. It doesn't work for public. It doesn't work for anybody to work in a very siloed an approach. And the problem is, I will tell you the one problem I'm struggling with, and maybe what somebody here can think creatively, is how does all of our funding come together at the right time to get the build going, the actual fiber build? Because the challenge like I have is my money is, I use it or lose it. And I think some of the cities are the same way, unless you get your elected officials to let it roll or whatever the case is, or tie it up into a project. But your project's not successful if you don't have your private partner, who they have financials that they have to look for as well. How does this all converge so that the timing works? Because the longer we sit there to try to formulate all this funding to come together at one time, we're just delaying broadband. I mean, just building 160 alone, we estimate getting from Pagosa to Cortez is going to take us about 34 months because the build seasons are shorter. So what we're talking about today, we're not going to reap the benefits of today until 34 months from now. at the best if we were to do it as public-private partnerships across the board. I'm talking 10 partners coming together to do that. That it's tough. And so we need to make sure those silos are down, and I'm open to any creativity of how we can overcome this so we can achieve the outcome.
Bob, please this is Corey Brindle. Please contact me offline. We've done an extensive amount of legwork on the ground on the 160 build between Cortez and East Pagosa. I think we could really accelerate the community aspect of that. And we'd certainly like to better understand the private engagement along the top of Wolf Creek to make sure that there's open access and that the communities can get access to the strands of fiber. But we'd love to expand that conversation and help you be successful in that area.
Thank you, Corey.
And I would love to be on that call too, because I talked to Bob a little bit about it, and it's pretty exciting what you guys have going on in your area.
Yeah, we're anticipating a meeting in early April with about 15 stakeholders on that route. And we want to designate that as a matter of state interest, because it has local benefits and it has global benefits throughout the state. So,
yeah, make sure CDOT's involved with your meeting if you're talking about a right of way.
Can I just interject really quickly as well? You're hearing on this call a lot of collaboration between state agencies, and I'm just going to echo what both Bob and Brandy have said, which is we cannot do this without our industry partners. We need the support from industry partners. So when we're having conversations like this, if you're interested in participating, please let us know. And if you have some solutions or some ideas that you want to bring up in this call, or ways that we, as the Colorado Broadband Office, I won't speak for Bob or for Greg, but ways that we can work more efficiently and effectively with you in partnership, please let us know. The funding that's coming, we are really relying on our industry friends to be subject matter experts to help us deploy this funding correctly. So please participate, please speak up, and please let us know where we can utilize your expertise.
And Sarah, just for clarification, it was not all state agencies. There were different government agencies.
Good point. Thank you.
Yeah, just want to make sure that Corey is not recognized as a state agency. And I see Eric came on. Eric has shown his picture, and so did Scott, who are also partners of ours, from the private side. So the agencies are pulling together because we all have different funding sources. So if we figure out how to pull it together and then collaborate, and I know we have a lot, and there's Scott, Arcadian. Oh, now I do have all my partners showing up, talking about private. We should turn it over to them. I mean, Scott and Eric. I know, Eric, you represent, I think, Archuleta at times as well, but you're also from industry. If you have any ideas, chime in.
Well, one of my questions, Bob, is, and the rest of the team, how does this executive order, or actually, let me back up. One of our biggest impediments to progress in installing and bringing broadband out is the cost to trench and the cost to actually, get the fiber into the ground. And there are a lot of new innovative ways to put fiber in the ground, beyond open trench, beyond bore. We can use lots of different techniques. Do you see this executive order addressing that? I think the speed to getting fiber to the places we need to get it really hinges on our ability to use different methods to get that fiber out there. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, great. I love that you're opening this up. No, the executive order doesn't, but I think it drives us to think that way, right? I think that, honestly, my personal opinion, coming from industry myself, I believe that the specs and standards in which CDOT requires on fiber and our partnerships and so forth might be dated. And I think it's time to review these new methods to look at it. I'll give you an example. What I'm very interested in, I would like to know more about is, can we do micro trenching in the paved shoulder to protect the fiber and not go as deep? So, we used to push it all the way out until you go all the way to the edge of the right of way, always go to the edge. it's weird how people can still get to the edge of the right of way and cut the fiber. It's like, what are you doing, 30, 40 feet off the interstate that you still impact my fiber or your fiber? What I think we need to do is use the asphalt and the base to protect the fiber in a different way, so no one should be punching through there. The only issue where we have reservation on is obviously we're all about safety. When you have people going out and doing locates on our highways, they're on the shoulder at 75 miles per hour. It makes us a little nervous that a locator is not watching the highway, and does that cause a different problem? So there is some internal debate. Now, I think micro trenching in there with a T-cap and make it really nice, I think is innovative. I think it's a good way. I know Utah's doing this way, and so I'm interested in what the cost difference is. So maybe that's a discussion. We pull a work group together, with private industry, and let's explore those and how you can influence our specs and standards on our right of way to influence a change that's faster and cheaper.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would love to participate in something like that because, we just got something passed in California and Los Angeles for microtrenching. And so there are standards out there that other states and large cities are adopting. So maybe we can
bring it up.
Look at some of those. Yeah, it'd be great.
Absolutely. I'm totally open to that.
Okay.
And I know, Scott, you're about to do some builds. Scott Terrell, I'm going over to Arcadia now. I mean, this is probably a good timing conversation for your organization as well from the private side.
Absolutely. I love what everybody's saying, and thanks, Bob, for teeing that up. There's no way that any one entity gets this done. There is so much complexity and so much expense. Love that Corey's still headed down his path. If he's pulling together 15 different entities, probably going to need them all, right? So, and Bob brings up the timing, not just in terms of whether it's going to take 3 years to do it from a weather and physical build perspective, but how are everybody's dollars lining up? So vitally important. So to the degree that there are meetings happening either in this forum or subcommittee meetings, please let us know, because we certainly want to participate and be there as we're helping, as I think folks know here, participating in Wolf Creek all the way down to the border going into New Mexico. And then our routes are headed all the way down over into Salt Lake and into Phoenix. So really excellent opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Eric, you want to say something?
Yeah, I like the conversation. It's always been my approach to look at all the different entities that are involved, and if we can solve the overlapping needs for all of them, whether it's CDOT. I know we've had conversations with Arcadian, looking at where their regen station needs to be, and making sure that kind of coordinates with our new local courier neutral location. Whoever was on with the hospital broadband, and you mentioned that as soon as you come down and interconnect from the top of Wolf Creek Pass, which I think is still slated for the end of 2023 building season, then we've already got that handhold that I coordinated with Julie Constant here with CDOT to have that cross connect into our aerial portion of our local fiber network, governmental fiber network, which is already going to the hospital. And so, yeah, I think we're always looking at, those kind of coordinated efforts, and I'm looking forward to, even amping those up a little bit.
Well, maybe there should be without talking to the rest of the board, but maybe there should be an open mic form of this, because we're making connections right here by just starting the conversation. And that's the other thing, is coordinating amongst our partners. Partners to me it doesn't matter if you're private or public or nonprofit, we are partners in this together. And so maybe we should do an open mic on this once in a while to say, hey, I'm trying to do this. Can we do this? Because school districts also need to weigh in as well. And I don't know if we got anyone from education, but they've always been interested. So I always promote this call, and maybe this is an opportunity to even foster conversation around partnerships. So Sarah?
I just wanted to say, Bob, huzzah, thank you for bringing that up. It is a desire of this board to start to transition to more working group open solution building sessions. We may continue with the once every other month regular session and then open it up for the months that we're not meeting as a board for working group sessions to have discussions like this. So I would love to hear your opinions about those people. If you would like to participate in that, if you'd like to send me an email, I'll add my email. That would be really great to hear that. Great idea, Bob. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, that's awesome, Sarah. So let's get that going, because I'd love to see more participation. It's almost like a clearinghouse of partnerships, I think, on here. I get excited when I hear folks talking about, coming together. The other thing is we need to be able to, and this is something I'm sure will strike a few folks, but when we build fiber as a partnership, it doesn't need to be proprietary. It doesn't need to be secret sauce. At the end of the day, when you deliver your products, it's your product. We don't need to know about your product, but the fiber itself shouldn't be so quiet and proprietary. At the end of the day, look, let's just get it out and get it going and solve these issues and help each other out. I mean, at the end of the day, I know everyone wants to say, well, it's competitive and stuff. Well, guess at the end of the day, we didn't solve it the last 20 years, and now we're together and we need to do it. It's not us against them. It's not government against, public versus private. It's a problem that we all agree. We all live here in some form or another. We all experience or have relatives or friends that live in rural parts of the state. For me, it's a safety thing. It's, I'll give you one story that maybe resonate with you all. Suicide has been a big thing in our state, and we have been asked by a hotline to put a call box on a bridge where people have unfortunately taken their lives because there's no cell coverage, there's no fiber, there's no broadband in the area. There's no last chance to make a second change or decision, to not do it. It's gone. So they've been asking CDOT to put a call box, say, if you're in need, call. Wow, this is where you're like, wow, you have people that need to call somebody when they're on that bridge and not take their lives. And so, to me, it's a matter of public health. And so, and it's economic engine, and it's everything you can think of in between: public safety and education and telecommuting, and it's just the thrival of our society it is today. And as my other hat would say, as just as important as water is into your house, I think broadband is too. It's equally important sometimes. It's amazing what people value in their house, but it's true. When our small towns can get an economic engine of family moving in that makes $250,000 or $500,000, that one family is an economic engine that supports that community's survival. And so, I won't belabor it. I think we all are passionate in the same way on this call. I think I know probably half the people on this call, and I could tell you all probably share in my passion. So I'm going to stop on my soapbox, and Sarah was the first one with the raised hand, and I'll get to Scott.
Yeah, sorry. Just really quickly, I put together a poll that I'm just going to launch right now. That's just yes, no, maybe question about participating in a working group session on solution building. So please answer it. This is my first time with a Zoom poll, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, cool. And what? Okay. And then I see, Nate, you said a question to Scott and myself about talking about 285. There are a number of communities and counties and communities on the eastern side of the build that have projects hanging on the middle mile development to connect the last mile. So I think what you're saying, Nate, is some people are banking on the 285 Arcadian build to fulfill their needs. Is that what you're implying, or did I get that wrong?
Yes, Bob. Yeah, that's correct as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hear it, and when I think of Park County, I don't think they've joined, but I know they have a broadband advisory group of both public, private. I know they've been for Fair Play in that whole area, South Park, getting the broadband. And I believe, Scott, I'm not going to speak for you, but I believe you're engaging in all those communities and those resources to try to address some of that on that route.
Yeah, but to the degree that there are programs going on that maybe we haven't been privy to, please don't assume anything. Hit me up at any time, or Dan Davis, and we're happy to jump in and have those discussions if we're not having them already.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, Bob. I just met with Park County yesterday, and Park County the Jeffco Public Schools out in the rural mountain areas. I know they've engaged with you, Bob. And then, down to Buena Vista, past Fairplay, into BV and Lake County, and trying to get those folks tied in as well, because that's an important area where there's limited middle mile fiber access, and there are a number of last mile providers who are ready to go or near ready to go. And so they're excited and engaged, and they keep asking the question, okay, where's Arcadian? Where's CDOT on this build? Certainly there are also state agencies and state parks that are also waiting on this bill to help connect their facilities as well. So there's some, this is just another example, everyone, of where industry and government and state government and local government all can come together to create some successful opportunities and outcomes for everybody.
Yeah, that, Nate, that brings up a good point. I mean, one of the things that I'll tell you when CDOT starts giving access, in the new world of access to the right of way, we're going to be asking it to publish the fiber providers on those routes, because twofold. One, no reason to dig again. If somebody's there that's willing to lease some fiber, call them, right? Because one issue I hear over and over, both by public and private entities, is I don't know who's who and where they're at. And so I don't know who to call or who to ask. And if you got school fiber and you got local fiber, you got state fiber, you got industry fiber, and everyone's open with it and you can publish it. And I know Megan and CBO try to do it at one point and publish it, and give contact information, then I can call Scott Harry for fiber up on this area, or I can call Scott Terrell if I have fiber needs down here, because I know everyone's making an investment around broadband. And if you're open and willing to lease your fiber, we should know about it, or patchwork it together. I know Corey's trying to do that with Region 10, is grabbing both, public utility companies, electric, co-ops, CDOT, local fiber. I know Northwest Cog did the same thing. Patchwork it together to deliver the outcome.
Hey, Bob, Corey
Yeah.
here. Can I ask a quick question? So there's a lot of like routes that you've described or discussed, and from 160 to 285. I think there's several others. 550 we know is kind of an interesting area as well. Has CDOT prioritized the possible routes throughout the state? If you had 100 million, if you had $1 billion, if you had the whole treasury, how would you put those against a schedule and say that these would get us either the most bang for the buck or go where industry hasn't, and kind of sift through that priority process? It would be really helpful to kind of know where those routes sit in CDOT's.
Yeah, I think Corey, we've shared that with you, but for the rest of the knowledge, folks, basically we have proposed $103 million builds that would have done it. And I'll be more than happy to share it with Sarah where we were wanting to do it. Now, ours is based off of two things. Really, one is we do not create islands. Fiber islands don't do anything for anyone. All of our stuff would be classified as middle mile stuff. And then where we have partners, that are willing, or in their business model they lease, we identify those. And then, so that's one. Second is we're driven by the safety of the highway system. So we will deploy where industry may not be interested in, which I think that's what draws interest in CDOT's fiber, is because Wolf Creek Pass is a good example where you're looking at $800,000 to $900,000 per mile fiber build. And, with my former employer, we would never have built that over because the revenues didn't benefit from it. From a state perspective, we're just interested, at least from a CDOT perspective, of improved commerce and ensuring safe passages over that lets these commercial vehicles in to deliver the goods into the communities, and making sure that we protect both wildlife, property, and life of traveling public. So, our drivers are not revenue drivers. Our drivers are safety drivers.
Is there a prioritization that you could share or make available to the public?
I wouldn't say prioritize which is over which. I think at the end of the day, it's routes we're interested in doing based on that criteria. And those will be published on our website. We'll do it at the same time with the executive order as well. We'll try to get that put up there as well in the next few weeks. Just so you can see where we're looking. Doesn't guarantee where we get it, because if we don't have the funding, it doesn't do any good. But every dollar we get, we'll put it onto those routes. So I'll share that. So right now, just to answer the question, priority was 160 is our priority. So West Pagosa or East Pagosa to Cortez is our priority. So any dollars we get for fiber, that's where we're going to put it first.
Let's certainly talk offline then. Thank you very much.
As soon as I can find $34 million. So
I just wanted to add, the poll went incredibly well, and I put a spreadsheet in the chat. Please add your name, organization, email, and email in there, and we will start scheduling some of these working group sessions. Oh, view only. Okay, thank you. I will fix it.
Okay, yeah, tried. Whole bunch of us went in there. All right, so great conversation. I felt that was a really interactive board meeting, which Brandy, we're just showing off for you. We're typically really dry and boring, so we must be, the team in the audience is definitely more engaged this time around. So we're all excited over the subject.
I think it's because we have money to do things.
Oh, that's fine.
So,
Ask our partners about
which
that.
is always really good, because you can actually take the talk and actually do something. So for me, it's a really exciting time. And I appreciate the collaboration with CDOT and DOLA and others on the call. I think it's going to be really helpful. And just to reiterate, it's going to take everybody, all industries, all sectors. So I'm happy to collaborate with everybody as we move forward.
Also, Bob, as the organizer of the Broadband Advisory Board, I am personally offended that you think our meetings are boring. Just joking.
You know they are. I mean, I want action. I talked to Brandy about it. I've hinted it to you, Sarah. I've talked to the governor's office about it. We talk and talk and talk. I think it's time we start seeing action, movement, partnerships come out of this, and I know we will get there. It's time for action, and I know Brandy's very interested in that as well, and I know the rest of CBO is. So we're all excited on what the next steps are for us, but we need to start putting, as a CDOTer would say, we need to put rubber on the road and let's go.
And for our first working group sessions, the CBO has been collecting broadband needs for things like community anchor institutions for the past year. And would love, have spreadsheets of, Department of Corrections facilities that need broadband, Colorado State Patrol units that need broadband, libraries that need broadband. I'm working on getting healthcare. So we'll bring those type of needs to the working group sessions with the Broadband Advisory Board, and encourage that if you are a community anchor institution and you have a broadband need, please reach out. As Brandy highlighted, we do have an executive order that specifically calls out certain verticals that we need to have strategic planning for, and that'll be a great place for the Broadband Advisory Board to start. So thank you.
Am I allowed to recruit any of these people for my working group stuff too?
We're a little low on staff, so.
Well, no, I'm saying the people that are volunteering for the working group, coming in and doing a working group session. Can I pick on them to do my working group to change our processes?
Let's just incorporate. Let's just do both.
Okay. Because now I got more contacts. But is there any questions or comments from the rest of the board? I know a few of us hogged it up, but I'd be very interested in anybody. Greg, or I don't know if Jeff's still here.
Bob, if I were to say anything, we in DOLA find ourselves in a period of transition. There is a lot of money coming to the state of Colorado in both the IIJA funds and the capital improvement project funds. They're all going to be administered and distributed by CBO. We have and will continue to have our what now we can really call small little broadband program off to the side that still does some middle mile work with local communities in order to enhance what we're doing. I do believe that as we go forward, one of the places that both with Nate and Corey and with all our regional managers and myself, that we are going to need to find ourselves in an advocacy role to be able to help local governments be able to maneuver, I would be the best word, through the application process, make sure that they put together the proper components of collaboration and cooperation that are going to need to be done in order to access these monies as we go forward. While we have been in an advocacy role for the monies that we have distributed, this is going to be a bit different. And we are willing to participate in developing the process as we've always been. We are watching as things are being developed and rolled out. We know our role in the executive order. We know the places we need to collaborate as we move forward. But I truly believe that we're in a very watch and see and somewhat trying to figure out what we do when we grow up.
You know, Greg, you made me think, and sometimes maybe it doesn't happen, but some of the industry folks should call their local county broadband office and city office and see how you can partner, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you're making me think about reinventing these relationships, right? You know, there's been adversarial in the past between industry and public, and we here at the state, I think we can all agree that really it open up the lines of communication, you know, and be open to it, you know, and ask the question, why not? We all have the same interest at the end of the day, right?
Right.
It'd be very interesting to have industry reach back into the state or into the city or counties and say, what can we do? I saw Eric here earlier. I don't know if he dropped, but that's a good example. I mean, I think, Eric, you have a relationship with Archuleta County, and you also have a private company, right? And you kind of partnered to achieve broadband, I'm assuming, right, Eric? Did I get that right? Kinda?
Yeah, I mean, they contract with me to, you know, kind of advocate on their behalf because they don't have the resources, especially the technical resources within the small county government and small city government that's here to do that. And so since I'm in IT, I at least understand and for my own purposes had been pursuing better broadband options for my customers and myself. And so it just was a good target of opportunity for us both, for me to help them out and you know, go to these meetings. And plus I sit in between all of the different governments and utilities and other and private ISPs. So I see stuff that they don't individually see. And I think that's a good role for each region, somebody to fulfill that role, because I see those collaborative opportunities that no one else sees.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's several of these. I think I saw Richard Holt from the city council member from Centennial, and I think it was, what is it, Chris from Teen. I think you all have a good partnership going on in Centennial. I mean, I can name a lot of them. Everyone's doing them. We just got to figure out, be innovative, and ask the question, when you work with each other, why not? What's preventing us to work together to achieve broadband in our communities?
Well, being able to not get any money is going to be a rather large impediment to people not working together. So I think that is a rather large incentive for both local governments and whether they be small ISPs or major incumbents. That is the wave of the future. That is how we will have to do things. We are going to try to position ourselves to be able to assist our local governments like we do in all aspects of the work that we do across the state. So that's where we're at. So I haven't really said a lot. I didn't need to, but I think if you want to know where we're at and what our position is, that's where we are today, and we're watching, and we're willing to participate wherever needed.
Well, thank you, Greg. Any other board members have any last minute comments before we wrap up? Sarah, you got Ashley. She came on. I don't know if you got her in the attendance. Okay.
I did, thank you.
All righty. Well, great conversation today. A lot of interactions. I hope to see that continue as the money comes out, and that we try to get achieve the EO. I think it's going to take both public and private, obviously, to achieve it. So we need to work together, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to any last words, Sarah or Brandy? Do you have any last words or anything?
No, just thank everybody for your time today. So I look forward to working with you.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and enjoy the warm weather while it lasts.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.